Elena Voss stood in the middle of the great hall, holding a heavy silver circlet in both hands. The hall was full of people, and every single one of them was watching her. She could feel their eyes on her skin like small needles. She kept her back straight and her chin high, because she had promised herself she would not cry tonight. For 26 years, Elena had believed she would one day lead Ashfall Pack. She was the first daughter. She had trained with the guards before sunrise every day since she was 12 years old. She had studied old treaties late into the night, until her eyes burned. She had walked the northern border in the rain, in the snow, and in the summer heat, learning every hill and every river on the land she loved. She had done everything a future leader was supposed to do. None of that mattered now. 3 days ago, the Elder Council had held a private meeting. Elena was not invited. When the meeting ended, she was told the decision. Her younger sister, Ren, had a birthmark shaped like a crescent moon on her collarbone. The elders said this mark was a sign of blessing from the old wolf spirits, a sign that only appeared on the true and rightful heir. Because of this mark, the council said, Ren would take the throne instead of Elena. Elena did not believe in signs. She had never seen proof that spirits blessed anyone with a shape on their skin. But she also knew that fighting the council in public would tear the pack apart. Ashfall had already lost too much in the last war. The people needed peace, not another battle over who deserved to rule. So Elena made a choice. She would step aside quietly and let her sister take the throne, even though every part of her heart screamed that it was wrong. Now she stood in front of the whole pack, about to make that choice final. I, Elena Voss, first daughter of Ashfall, she said, and her voice did not shake, give up my claim to the Alpha's seat. I name my sister, Ren Voss, as the rightful heir and future leader of this pack. She placed the circlet on a soft cushion held by a young attendant. Her hands felt strangely light without it, as if she had been carrying a stone for years and had just set it down, except this stone was also her whole future. The crowd began to clap. Some people looked happy. Some looked confused. A few, mostly the older guards who had trained beside Elena, looked down at the floor instead of clapping at all. Ren stepped forward in a pale gown that shimmered like fresh snow. She was smiling, and she did not try to hide how pleased she felt. She lifted the circlet and placed it gently on her own head, tilting her chin up so everyone could see her clearly. She looked like she had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Elena stepped back into the crowd. For the first time in her life, nobody was looking at her. She had spent her whole life being watched, judged, and measured. Now she was simply a woman standing among many other women, and it felt strange, like wearing clothes that did not fit. That was when the great doors at the far end of the hall shook and burst open. A cold wind rushed into the room, carrying the smell of rain and distant mountains. Every wolf in the hall dropped to one knee at once, as if their bodies understood something before their minds did. Elena felt it too, a deep pull in her chest, an old instinct that recognized power, far greater than anything in this room. She realized, with a jolt, what was happening. An Alpha King had entered the hall. There were only 7 Alpha Kings in the whole land, each one ruling over dozens of packs. Most people lived their entire lives without ever seeing one in person. Elena had heard stories about them since she was a child, but she never expected to stand in the same room as one. He walked in slowly, dressed in dark traveling clothes covered in dust, as if he had ridden through the night without stopping to rest. He was tall, with dark hair and sharp eyes that swept across the room. When his gaze reached Elena, it paused. She was the only person still standing, having been too shocked to kneel in time. I heard that Ashfall Pack was naming a new heir tonight, the king said. His voice was calm, but it carried through the whole hall without effort. I came to see for myself if what I heard was true. The head elder rose from his knee, bowing low. Your Majesty, we are honored by your visit. The matter has already been settled. Ren Voss carries the mark of the old spirits, and she has been named heir. The mark, the king said, was not given by any spirit. A wave of confused whispers spread through the hall. Ren's smile faded slightly, though she tried to keep her composure. For the last 2 months, the king continued, I have been investigating a group of people who forge false bond marks. They tattoo symbols on the skin, using a special ink that looks exactly like a true spirit blessing. They sell these fake marks to wealthy families who want to buy power for their children instead of earning it. I did not expect to find proof of this crime here, in Ashfall, but I did. He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded piece of parchment. He handed it to the nearest elder, who read it with shaking hands. The color drained from the old man's face. Ren Voss's mark was placed on her skin 11 years ago, the king said, by a woman known as Old Marta, who has already confessed everything to my investigators in exchange for a lighter punishment. The payment for this false mark came from an account controlled by your family, head elder. The very same account that later paid for Ren's education and her travels. Silence fell over the hall. Ren's hand rose to touch her collarbone, where the mark she had trusted her whole life suddenly felt like a lie burned into her skin. Her mother, seated in the front row, began to rise from her chair, then sat back down, her face pale as paper. Elena felt something cold settle in her stomach. She understood, in that moment, that her own mother had probably known about this, or at least suspected it, and had said nothing. Also that Ren, the daughter everyone had always favored, could take a throne that was never truly meant for her. The succession you announced tonight is void, the king said. His words were simple, but they landed like a hammer on stone. It was based on a lie. He turned and looked at Elena again. This time, the whole hall turned to look at her too. I looked into Elena Voss before I came here, he said. She has led border patrols since she was young. She negotiated a water rights agreement with Ironclaw Pack, without a single drop of blood being spilled. She trained every day for a role she believed was hers by right and by effort, not by any mark on her skin, and tonight she gave up that role peacefully, because she believed it was the only way to protect her people from more fighting. Elena's throat tightened, but she kept her voice steady. I didn't want a war. My people have suffered enough. That is exactly why you deserve to lead them, the king said quietly. He turned back to the elders. I recommend the council meet again within the week, and correctly name Elena Voss as the rightful heir of Ashfall Pack. I will be watching closely to see whether that recommendation is followed. The head elder bowed so low his forehead nearly touched the floor. It will be done, your majesty. The king did not wait for further conversation. He turned to leave, but before he reached the door, he stopped and looked back at Elena one more time. You gave up a throne tonight because you thought it was the right thing to do, he said. That kind of honesty is rare, especially among people who could have easily chosen power instead. I would like to speak with you again, not as a king addressing his subjects, but simply as myself. Then he walked out into the night, leaving the doors swinging gently behind him. For a long moment, nobody in the hall moved. Then, slowly, whispers began again, growing louder and louder until the room buzzed with noise. Elena stood frozen, the events of the last few minutes replaying in her mind. She barely noticed when Ren approached her, the circlet still on her head, but her eyes now filled with tears. I didn't know, Ren whispered. I swear, Elena, I didn't know about the mark. Elena looked at her sister and, despite everything, believed her. Ren had always been the favored child, spoiled perhaps, but never cruel. She had likely been as much a victim of their mother's ambition as Elena had been a victim of the council's blind trust in an old superstition. I believe you, Elena said softly, but this isn't your fault, and it isn't mine either. It's something that happened to both of us. Ren removed the circlet from her head with trembling hands and held it out. Take it. It was always supposed to be yours. Elena hesitated. A week ago, she would have taken it without a second thought. Now, holding it felt different. It felt like picking up something that had been broken and put back together, no longer quite the same shape as before. Let the council decide properly this time, Elena said, not because of a mark, real or fake, but because of what we've actually done for this pack. Over the next week, the hall was filled with meetings, arguments, and long nights of discussion. Elena answered every question the elders asked her. She spoke about her years on the border, her work with neighboring packs, and her hopes for Ashfall's future. She did not pretend to be perfect. She admitted her mistakes, and spoke honestly about the moments she had doubted herself. Slowly, she watched the doubt in the elder's eyes turn into something closer to respect. On the seventh night, the council gathered once more in the great hall. This time, there was no false mark to hide behind, no easy answer to lean on. The head elder stood before the pack and spoke clearly. After careful consideration, and in light of recent revelations, the council names Elena Voss as the true and rightful heir of Ashfall Pack. The hall erupted into applause, louder and warmer than before. This time, Elena did not step back into the crowd. She walked forward, and the same attendant who had once taken the circlet from her now placed it gently back into her hands. As she held it, she felt the weight differently this time. It was not just a symbol of power. It was a reminder of everything she had endured to reach this moment, and everything she still had to prove. Later that night, after the crowd had gone and the hall had grown quiet, Elena stepped outside into the cool air. She was not entirely surprised to find the Alpha King waiting near the edge of the courtyard, his dark cloak fluttering slightly in the wind. "I heard the news," he said. "Congratulations." "Thank you," Elena replied, "for coming back that night. Without you, none of this would have happened." "I only revealed the truth," he said. "You were the one who earned everything else." They stood together for a while, saying little, simply enjoying the quiet after a very loud week. Elena did not know exactly what the future held, whether with her pack, her sister, or this stranger who had changed everything with a single visit. But for the first time since the council had taken her future away, she felt something steady and hopeful growing inside her chest. She was, at last, standing where she belonged, not because of a mark or a lie, but because of everything she had chosen to become.